Welcome back to the Confident Kids Communication Podcast.
It's episode 3 of the CKCP.
I'm Sara Sofia de Castro.
I'm Rebecca Waters, and we're here kicking it off with Master Hans Elie.
Woo! Hello, everyone. I'm super excited to be here. Thank you guys
super
for
excited to
having me.
have you here.
Thank you.
Okay, well, so let's get to know you a little bit better. How
Yeah.
long have you been training in martial arts?
Today's June? We're in June.
Yes, sir.
This month will be 21 years or 22 years in martial arts.
I haven't been
started in 2003.
That's a long time.
That is
Thanks.
older than probably most of people.
It's older than me. I wasn't even born yet.
You're the older one, too.
And
Listen, you're older than me. That's just how it is.
wait, no, you specifically said that I'm the old one.
I said you're the older one. It's okay. That's not the point.
Anyway, with your 21 years of experience, what are some highlights of your martial arts journey?
Some highlights, I would say, would be getting my first degree, Midnight Blue or Chodan, becoming a master. The first time I ever did a martial arts performance outside the school, and at the time, meeting my soon-to-be or my future wife. That was really cool. And some highlights, being able to become partners of USK with my mentor, my teacher, Alvis Quanjana.
Nice.
Those are definitely some interesting...
Yeah, it's a lot. It's a lot of milestones.
It's a lot of,
And you get to work with your lovey-dovey wifey
Yes.
every day.
Yeah, okay.
Okay.
Anyways, continuing on. So it's been a long time, and you started when you were how old?
I started when I was 13 years old. It was a summer going into 8th grade, and my mom saw an article in the newspaper for a local martial arts school summer program to start off for 6 weeks. So
6
back then,
weeks.
6 weeks. Back then, we really couldn't afford any summer camp or anything like that, and my mom had to work a lot. My dad was or is a pharmacist, and he was working out in Miami, and she didn't want her 13-year-old son just hanging around the house all day long or running around Coral Springs and Margate area. So she said, hey, I got this 6-week program. I'm going to get you this mountain bike, a Mongoose mountain bike. And she's like, I'm going to have you just ride your bike to the karate school. So we ended up going right down the street, maybe less than a mile, to this taekwondo school. It was relatively small when we walked in. And she's like, this is the place. And I kind of didn't really like it at first. And I said, is this where the article was for the special? So she's like, no, it's even further. So I was like, okay, let's go a little bit further down to that school, USK at the time. It was on Wiles and 441. And it was probably 3 to 4 miles away from our house. And we walked in, and I said, all right, I would like to stay here. And that's kind of how I got my foot in the door as a 13-year-old white belt taking at the time, the teen adult class.
I think it's crazy that from the very beginning you could feel the energy and know exactly what you were looking for, and it led you to USK opposed to where you originally started. I think that's super cool.
I had to drive or ride my bike past the original karate school I was supposed to go to end up going to this one. And at the end of the 6 weeks, my mom was like, so what do you want to do? Do you want to continue your training? Because now I was going into 8th grade. And I was like, you know what? I'll stick with it. Funny enough, when I was younger, probably 5th grade or 6th grade, my mom asked me, do you want to do karate? And I always loved the Power Rangers growing up, and I would pretend to be a little Power Ranger running around my house.
Which one?
The Red Ranger, of course. The Red Ranger. Tommy the Red Ranger. And I always ran around the house, and she was like, well, do you want to do karate? And back then I was like, no, karate's boring. I don't want to do karate. So I didn't really... I was a young kid, and I didn't really take interest in doing martial arts at the time, but I'm super excited that I did.
Yeah, it became so much bigger than what may have seemed super simple as something to do over the summer.
Yeah.
So going on with that, you said you started at 13. I know that a lot of people, maybe for the most part, it's younger students who are starting, and I don't know how it was at the time with amounts of the difference in ages, but What was your thoughts on starting like a little bit older as a teenager, where that's more opinions going around, especially with you, your classmates going into 8th grade?
Yeah, I thought it was stupid. I thought it was stupid. I was going to 8th grade and I was a punk. So my birthday's in July. I started when I was 13, but 3 weeks later, I turned 14. So they put me in the teen adult class, and it was only like 5 people at the time. So I didn't really get to meet the other children in the class that would have ended up being black belts in our current school. I would walk around in my little white uniform, and I would get this nonstop whoa every time you walk into a store and stuff like that. At the time, I really didn't tell my 8th grade, friends that I was doing martial arts, because at least back then, doing martial arts wasn't as cool. I didn't really get made fun of, but I just kind of kept it to myself, and it was an interesting thing to go through, and I think that. I had a huge ego back then, so, I don't know. Yeah.
Well, going along with your training and getting older as you trained throughout the years, how did your perception of martial arts change when it soon became your profession, when you started teaching and stuff like that?
Say that one more time.
How did your perception of martial arts change when it became your profession?
How did martial arts change for me when it became my profession? I don't think it really changed when it became my profession. I would say that it changed prior to making it into a career, because for me, martial arts changed. Okay, so when I was 15 years old, all right, further back. By the time I got a green belt, which is about a year of training, I think, maybe even orange belt, I kind of wanted to stop martial arts. And at the time, my teacher, just came up from Miami Homestead, and he became the manager of USK at the time. He said to me that, you have a very special gift in martial arts, and it would be quite a shame to throw that away and stop. So that kept me on the path, and I kept training in martial arts for about 2 more years. So by the time I got in 15, 16 years old, I was kind of getting bored of it. I was a pretty firecracker red belt, and I walked into the school. My friend worked next door, which was a Subway. So every time I would go to Subways, and I would get like the free $1 cookies at the time. And
free?
Well, he worked at Subways, and it was $1 for a cookie. So he would come in like,
that.
I'll hook you up with a cookie. So I was like, oh yeah, the chocolate chip cookie was awesome. So I would ride my bike from Coral Springs High School, go over there to Subways, hang out with my friend, and it would be like 3:30, and I'm right next door to my karate school. So I would walk in, and then at the time, my teacher had said, hey, if you ever want an opportunity to come in and help me teach, you could do that. And I was like, oh my gosh, that's the coolest thing ever. I didn't know that I could do that or even had an opportunity. So I was like, yeah, absolutely. So the next day I rode my bike to the karate school, and I helped him teach by sitting and watching him teach the class. So that was kind of how I got my foot in the door of my career. So when I had the opportunity to teach people, that became my ultimate passion. Like martial arts, I love it, cool, fantastic, but teaching others and having the opportunity to give back to what's been given to me was solidified it. So making that into a career, that was just the icing on top. But I always loved martial arts. I always loved the opportunity to help others, and making a career was just an extra bonus point.
So when did you officially start becoming a teacher? Like what age, and how long have you been teaching for?
I started learning how to teach at 15, and I did that in October in 2005, and I did that for about 2 years. So there wasn't as a structure to how we have it now.
Yes, sir.
Like Delta and Title and things like that. That's our leadership current program. So it was just really just assisting on the floor, moving some bags, grabbing some equipment, and then little by little, my teacher would just give me 1 student, 2 students, 3, and just started handing off students and kind of coaching over our shoulder. And it was a lot of like really hands-on learning, where it's like, nope, go back, try it again, do it this way, communicate that way. And I did that for 2 years. There was an opportunity to work here in our school, and I did not get the job. There was an opening that came up that you could, work on the leadership team, and I was assisting for 2 years, and me and my other friend at the time, we did that. I didn't get the job. I was super bummed, but that was kind of how I got my foot into teaching. And then afterwards, my first ever job was at BJ's, which is kind of like our Costco's down here, and it was pushing shopping carts. And I did that in the blazing hot sun. And I thought to myself, never again. I will never.
Was it on a slope?
Yes. It was by Hillsborough 441. And it was before they had the machines to automate the shopping carts.
Yes, sir.
So I had to push 9 shopping carts. It was average. If you really wanted to get a great workout, it's 12. And then if it rained, tough. And I would feel so defeated to watch so many carts come out, and I go and push 9 at a time with this little scrawny kid. And I was like, I'm never doing this again. So then I got a new job. It's really funny how the world works, and it comes full circle. I got my second job right here in our plaza at Pollo Tropical. So how I did my job interview too is I wore my best Sunday dress, pants, suit, and tie. I was probably 17 years old at the time, and all the employers are looking at me like I'm crazy, but I didn't care because dress for success. So I got the job. I was the cashier at Pollo Tropical. Everyone came in, started talking to me in Spanish. Don't speak a lick of Spanish at all, and I got free food. I don't eat there anymore because one thing is when you work at a fast food restaurant, you come home smelling like your clothes. Oh yeah. So you get free food. That's cool. But after a month or so, it gets ridiculously old. So how did an opportunity happen here for me at USK was that one of our leadership team members had an opportunity to go to Texas. And this was when tech was really blowing up. It's 2007. So we did our end of the year show, which is our graduation performance in December, and he was going away, and Alvis Quanjan asked me, hey, I have an opportunity to work here part-time. Would you like it? I was like, yeah, absolutely. I was like, absolutely. So I left Pollo Tropical, and then USK became my third job, and I've been here pretty much ever since.
Yes, sir. Going back to what you're mentioning about the way you learn to teach, because it's definitely very different from the system we have now, where everything's structured and it's much more you have a clear line and you know where you're going. How was that how did that shape you into the teacher you are today? Because having to watch to learn instead of having okay, you're gonna do this and then this is your next step, and knowing where you're going, how was that?
How did it shape me to learn? It was stressful. I'm not gonna lie, it's very demanding. You have to be quick on your feet. There's pros and cons to anything that you do in life. The first part is that martial arts was designed for men who are going into war. That the level of pressure and stress that you undergo was you were always getting ready for combat fear. Then when you bring it over, there was a tremendous amount of benefits that we learned later on that can help children with their development. So as a teacher, we back then, they didn't really put those two together just yet to help develop a program to help children. It was just haphazardly. You learn from your sensei and his sensei and his sensei and so on. So it's you learn by trial and error and being put into the fire. The benefit of that was that you were able to improvise on your feet extraordinarily fast, quickly. You can flow with pretty much almost anything. The negative side to that is that it produced one teacher, and only the best of the best could rise up to the top. And there's pros and cons, but for us, what we learned on later on in life is that we wanted to be able to help as many people as possible and help with different types of learning styles. So if you could stick it out back in my day, cool, great. You're the 1%. Now it's the ratio has completely flipped, is that anyone can come in and learn and grow and get better from their experience and better from the program. If you want to learn at a harder or faster rate, it's just doing it better with the knowledge that we have now.
Yes, sir.
And then with the whole trial and error with martial arts and things like that, learning how to teach and learning how to get better, what are some challenges you faced in your career? What are some challenges you had to overcome as you went on with teaching?
Complacent mind, that's a very good question. So the challenges that I had was complacent mindset and being not necessarily adapting with the time, because how you learned may not be how other people can learn best from it. So for me personally, I would get into an old school mentality and say things like, well, I learned it this way. This is how it once was. Therefore, other people should be able to follow suit. And that was a paradigm shift that I really had to navigate, because when I first became a manager in 2012, I think I was 22 or 23 years old. And I'm going to answer your question. I'm going to answer your question, but I want to give you some context first, is that, I can go back further, but when I first became a manager, went to right here in Chipotle. There's a lot of history with this Chipotle behind us, but I took the job of being a manager, and I actually told Alvis Quanjitum, I don't want to be a manager. I was 22 years old, 23 years old, something like that. And I was like, I have no idea how to be a manager. It was like, that's so foreign to me, because all I saw was like the super successful people, prior Quanjitum, Alvis Sabin at the time. And I was like, I don't know how to do what you guys do. So let me be, I'll take the manager role, but I won't take the title just yet. I'll learn how to do it. And he was like, yeah, okay. So later on, he announced, well, here's our new manager of USK. And I was like, oh, thanks. Thank you so much. So why is that important? Is because after I took on that role, teaching martial arts, it didn't come easy, but I was doing it for such a long time. Since I was 15, now I'm 22. It's like teaching, running the floor, easy. Second nature. Managing and interacting with different types of energy from not just your clients, but your different team members. At the time, your mom, maybe 9 months later, your mom came on board, and she's senior to me in age. And that also plays a role of like, well, here's this young manager and here's this person who is senior to me in age. How is that dynamic going to work? And then you have someone who is my wife's brother, who worked for us at one point. Now I have my current brother-in-law working for us, who's my junior to me in age. And it was just a wide range of characteristics, a wide range of personality that I had to learn through trial and error, because everyone has their own things that they bring to the table, and how does that work together as a team? I forgot your original question.
I forgot my original question too. Oh, okay. Wait.
I think it had to do with like
challenges in your career.
Yes.
What was one of your biggest challenges when it came in your career?
The mindset was that not to be so rigid with your thought process, and really question, does this mindset that you currently have, does it still hold water? That's one of the quotes that my teacher uses constantly. Does this still serve you to this day? All right, great. It worked for you in your early 20s, or worked for your mid 20s, your 30s. Now I'm going to be mid 30-year-old. Is it still applicable for today? And not being afraid to ask yourself those personal questions, because a lot of people will get very complacent in their thought process and mindset. So I like to think that for me personally, that like I'm a butterfly, and I can choose and work on it aggressively on how fast I want to change. If I make a decision to say, okay, this doesn't work anymore, I'm going to get in my cocoon, I'm going to evolve, I'm going to change, and I'm going to say, I'm going to actively work on it. So the first step was being able to create a culture and an environment that was vastly unique. You know, I wanted to help create a team first of people who genuinely wanted to be here, wanted to, that love what they did, give back, and just help create a team of just like rock stars. That's what I wanted. So overcoming certain mindsets that I had as a first-time manager.
So like being more open-minded to changes and stuff like that?
And declaring that you were yes, and also declaring that you were actively going to work on fixing it, changing it. It didn't happen overnight. There was hundreds of conversations, a lot of uncomfortable moments, and sometimes martial arts can sometimes fool you, because sometimes in martial arts it can fool you because, you know, what level degree are you?
Third Dan.
Third degree black belt. What about you?
Third Dan. Third
degree black belt. In the martial arts world, in the regular world, if you're a black belt, it's like, oh my God, you're a black belt.
Yes, sir.
And you have this false sense of like, yeah, absolutely, darn right, I am a black belt. I'm a second degree black belt. And it gives you this false sense of arrogance that's like, I'm a black belt. I know better. I can do this. I can do that. And that's not what martial arts is truly about. It's always redefining yourself. One thing that I talk about to students is that, you know, they say, well, I've been doing it since I was 6. I've been doing it now since I was 10 years old. Well, are you the same person you were when you were 7?
No, sir.
Right, and you laugh when you even think about that. Are you the same person that you were when you were 15?
No, not
16?
Sir. No, sir.
17?
No, sir.
18? Extremely similar.
Kind of, yes, sir.
Right. So it's always, and there's always levels to it. You're always going to adapt and change, and, you know, not to be so complacent, and it just being able to be fluid.
And I think you mentioned the fact that, like, from the outside perspective, like, martial arts, especially being a black belt, like, for me, when I meet new people and they find out that I do martial arts, that's their first question is always like, oh, are you a black belt?
Yeah.
And so it's always like, well, like, yeah,
like, you know how to fight? Like,
yeah, it's like, oh, like, could you beat me? It's like, oh, could you beat me in a fight? Like, it's always these questions of, like, instant, or a lot of times my friends will be like, oh, are you in Cobra Kai? Could you do Cobra Kai? And it's having to be like, well, no, like, let's look at this differently, because that's not how it is, really, when we train. Or like, being a black belt doesn't have this like big stigma of like, oh my gosh, you can beat everybody up and that's all you do.
Have you seen the meme online where it's like what my friends think martial arts is and versus how I actually do it? So the meme is like our friends are doing like these MMA fighting blood like cage match, and then it's like how I actually do martial arts is like, pick up your foot, move it here, do that.
Basically.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
It's because it's so wildly different. And it's just like instantly like, oh, are you a black belt? And then they start doing punches and kicks and like, oh, am I doing it right? I'm like, guys, like, we can calm down. This isn't really like that crazy. Like, yes, it's definitely an accomplishment if you're a martial artist, but it's not in the way that you see it. And so
it's
definitely
like, it's very surface level. They don't really see, unless you actually are part of the martial arts journey, you don't really see what it does for you until you actually experience it for yourself.
So I think it's like a really big thing, and just knowing that, like, you know, just because people think it's all that, it's like you have to think about it from the martial arts view and perspective that, like, you know.
Why do you think that is? Why do you think people view it that way?
I think it's the way that it's shown to the world.
Yes,
absolutely.
Portrayed on TV,
yes,
and
TV,
shows and
movies,
stuff like that.
all that. And it's also like, oh, the Karate Kid, like, you like the Karate Kid, and then like they whip out the move where he's like his hands are up and in the final
and
kick.
sometimes
like,
they don't even do it right.
I'm like,
your technique was off, man.
Not perfect.
And sometimes I have to hold back, saying, "Oh, you have to bend your knee a little bit more,"
Yeah,
you know. But I had to, you know, yeah. So I know that changing the mindset, changing the perspective was one challenge that you had to go through. But I know in recent years you also had a few surgeries, like like your Achilles surgeries.
Yes.
Twice. Not only one, exactly. Not only one, but twice.
Yes.
The same time, in just a span of a year between the two. So how did for martial arts, we're always on our feet and we're always moving around. And me personally, if that were to happen to me, I feel like I would struggle a lot because I can't really use that foot if I'm in the healing process. So how was your healing process like with your after recovery, like with your surgery? And how was your mindset? Like, how did you feel?
All right, so that's the most important. That's when you were asking the question, you said, how was your recovery process? The recovery process for me was mindset, was my attitude. I'm a big believer of that if you're going to preach something, you better be damn sure that you're going to do it first. So when it happened, when it first happened, I was pissed. I was angry. I was upset. I think it was like 7 days before I was going to get married. And I was upset at what that would be like for my future wife. I wasn't upset at myself. Okay, I was upset at myself, but I was more upset at what that would do for my wife, walking down the aisle, the first dance, things like that. People are flying in, and that's a huge milestone. Then on the other side of that, I went to the negative thought process of I will never play basketball ever again, and that scared me. Like, I love to play basketball. I will never be in the NBA, but I love to do it. It's my stress relief. It's what brings me immense happiness to quickly pick up a game. And I thought to myself, there's no way I'm going to ever have the opportunity to ever play basketball again. So that, and I don't like needles. I don't like shots. Yes, I can break bricks. I can run through a brick wall. All that's cool.
Break boards of fire.
Yeah. But getting poked, no, I don't want to get needle.
Yeah, no needle.
No, it doesn't matter how. I don't want to get poked. No, thank you. So the thought process of having to go to get surgery, I try to avoid the doctor like the plague. I do not want to go to the doctor. So the mindset of that was simple. Is that going back to my mentor, and I think it was like the second day. So when it happened, I was at the Coral Springs gym, and it felt like someone roundhouse kicked my leg. I went down to the floor, and I started practicing my breathing. It was like 2 minutes. I laid on the ground, and then I stood up. I was like, all right. The competitive nature in me was like, I can keep going. Let's do this again. So I tied my shoe on harder, and all of my friends were like, Hans, are you okay? So I tied my shoe, and I tried to take a step. I was like, all right, let me just walk it off. I could not walk it off. And I had to sit on the sidelines watching my friends, because we rent out the gymnasium. I had to sit on the sidelines watching my friends continue to play basketball, and I was pissed. So then I went to my mom's house. My fiance at the time, she was up in Orlando with your mom. And she was at her bachelorette party. And I went to my mom's house, took a shower, I elevated my foot. I'm like, all right, no big deal. It's just a sprain. Okay. That was like in the morning. Later that night, she comes back and she looks at my foot. She's like, what happened to your foot? And I was like, just playing basketball. She's like, we're going to the doctors right now. So we ended up to the doctors, and when these hard life-changing things happen to you, or at least to me, I try to stay very calm, cool, and collected. So the doctor was like talking about how you may have a rupture, and I was like, what the heck is a rupture? I don't know what that means. And he looked, he's like, yeah, I think you have a rupture. We may need to do an MRI to see it. It's not bone or anything like that. No need for an X-ray. And then he asked me, he's like, are you in the military by any chance? I was like, no. And I was like, why do you ask? He's like, you seem very calm. I'm like, no, I'm not. So when he got the MRI, came back as a 100% tear. Two things could happen. And at that point, this was like the end of 2019 and going into 2020. This is December. And at that time, I was actually up to take my next level of master's test. And the recovery time to let it heal on your own for an Achilles tear is about 12 months.
Wow.
12 months to recover.
It's a long time.
Or gets better. If you choose not to do surgery, then there's not a guarantee that your foot will actually recover properly. So I was like, oh. My friend John Fortner, shout out to John, he's in the military. And he, maybe like a couple months prior, he tore his Achilles tendon. And he did a 90% tear and opted not to do surgery. So I said, all right, man. I called him up. Hey, this happened to me. What did you do? He's like, I didn't do surgery, things like that. And it's like, it took me a year to recover. I was like, man, I don't have a year. I don't have a year to just not do, like I do martial arts professionally. I cannot afford to sit off for a year. So I decided to do the surgery. We did our crazy story. So I opted to do the surgery. We got married. How we got married was this. Like, I asked my wife's brother to tie a basketball ankle brace around my foot, and I literally walked down the aisle. We did our first dance with my mom too. We were supposed to take a cruise to like Puerto Rico or something like that. Supposed to take a cruise. Saturday we got married. Sunday we were supposed to leave for the cruise. The following week, I was scheduled for surgery, so obviously I couldn't go on the cruise. That Monday in the island, there was an earthquake.
Oh wow!
So had I not torn my Achilles tendon, we were scheduled to be on the cruise. So did the surgery, and after surgery, I was probably out of the school for like 3 days. Came back at a boot, and I didn't want to. A lot of people tell you don't do this, you can't do that, and I hate that. Like it's limiting beliefs. I think that if you really believe and try to push your boundaries, you don't really know what you're capable of. So I would make little benchmarks in my mind of how hard or how I want to push myself. Of course, my wife's in the background saying, "No, don't do that."
And the one forcing you to get the shots.
Yes, don't do that. You have to listen to the doctor. It's like, okay, yes, okay, but and I just kept trying to push myself, and I wanted to, in teaching and in martial arts, it's better to show than speak it. Seeing it once is better than hearing it 1,000 times. So I didn't want to talk about how strong or tough I could be. Shut up. Let me just show you with my actions. So I'm like, 3 days, coming back, and I'm going to show my students that it doesn't matter what's happening to you. Like, if you really push through with intelligence, you can go the distance. You can do better. So, I wanted to prove to my students that, you can overcome certain challenges. At the time, my friends told me, he's like, "Hey, Hans, I'm really glad it happened to you." I was like, what? Dang. Yeah, I kid you not. He's like, "I'm really glad it happened to you." And I'm thinking, listen to him like, son of a gun.
How should I take that? How should I?
I'm like, what do you mean by that? And he was like, "If anyone can come back from Achilles tear, it's you." I was like, "Oh man, you son of," like
saved himself.
Yeah, I was like, I appreciate it, but I really wish it wasn't me, and like every December we go play basketball. We rent out gyms in like the and we play basketball. And the following year, I ended up playing basketball again, which was awesome. And as you mentioned, literally a year later, I tore my other Achilles tendon, and this time I heard a big pop. It sounded like not necessarily like some people call it like a shotgun or a gunshot. It was like a big boom, and I actually have a video of it.
No, thank you.
Oh, okay, thanks.
I'm okay.
I heard a pop, boom. I looked back behind me like, what the heck was that? And I went to take a step, and in film you can see my foot go like this, and I step, and I'm loading my leg up with my weight. I'm like, man, there's no weight that's being like distributed properly here. I'm like, oh, and I like slid on the floor, and I lay there, and I was like, I know what it is already. So I got up, and my friends were like, you okay? I'm like, yeah, I tore my other Achilles. And they started laughing.
What? Oops.
They started laughing. They're like, no, you didn't. Like, because you don't think like
that's the
that was
gonna
happen. Exactly.
I asked my doctor, I was like, what's the likelihood of me tearing my Achilles? He's like, unless you have a knife, you're not gonna tear it again. So what's the likelihood of you tearing your other Achilles tendon? It's not very likely. So when I said that to them, they laughed like, ha ha ha, you're so funny, because last year I tore it, and now I get to play basketball again. And no, I knew exactly what happened, and I walked off the court, went home, showered, and I went back to see my doctor, and I'm like, we got to stop meeting like this. And I'm like, all right, just at this point, like, what are you gonna do? You're gonna cry over spilt milk, cry over a tear Achilles? I'm like, let's do it again. And I will never forget, I had a student here, Gabriella's sister, right? Sofia Venegas. I had my boot on, now on my other foot, because I saved all my equipment. And she looks at me, she goes, what happened to you? I was like, playing basketball. She's like, again? I was like, yes, again. And she looks at me, she says, you gotta stop playing basketball. And I said, no, I will not stop playing basketball. You know, like most people just would probably say that same thing to come to that conclusion. You got to stop. You got to stop. Why? You know, life happens. If it doesn't kill you, keep going. You know, like with wisdom. You know, I'm not like jumping off a building, but I'm playing basketball. And how crazy that sounds, like I feel like that could have, it was bound to happen. You know, like I do crazier and harder stunts and tricks in martial arts,
and then
literally stepping backwards. Yeah. I have done that trillions of times. So, you know, it was bound to happen. And, you know, like he said, if anyone can recover from Achilles tendon, let alone 2 Achilles tendon, it's me.
And then how was that recovery like the second time around? Like, because you already had it, and you already had to go through all the process. Was it easier the second time around?
The second time around, I could feel. Have you guys ever had surgery?
No, sir.
Well, the teeth, but not really.
Okay. My wife had shoulder surgery, and she would say she could feel the pressure in the air, whether it's going to rain and things like that. And
when it can rain?
What?
When it can rain? Like her shoulder can feel when it's going to rain?
When the pressure in the air changes. So, yes.
What?
Her shoulder felt
it's
that?
It's just like
a
like
tingling?
magic.
Wait, I'm so confused.
Like the Spidey sense, like just like except the shoulder.
She can feel a flare up. She will feel pain in the area in which she had surgery. So she would say things like, it's going to rain, or like something's changing in the weather. The pressure in the weather.
Did it have to did it have to do something with the weather, or is it just like extra?
What?
Did her like shoulder have to actually do it, like the pressure, or was it just like it hurts?
Did her shoulder do the
what?
pressure?
Well, because you said it's like the air pressure. Like, did it actually have to do with the air?
Or are you just saying that?
And she's like, oh, it's gonna rain.
Let's move on, because I don't get it.
Anywho,
move on. I don't know what you're saying.
Thank you. You get it, right? Behind the camera, yes. So my second time, I would feel sharp pain in my Achilles. And I don't think it was the weather. You know, like every once in a while, it would just feel like little daggers and needles, like stabbing you. And I would never tell my wife, because she was like, "Do you need to do something about it?" Like, you know, like what's the point of complaining and like being like, you can fill in the word, but there's no need for that. So I was like, just keep it moving, stretch, and just keep pushing through. So yes, the second time, it hurt more than the first time.
But the mindset, with the mindset that you gained over the first recovery process, did it help you overcome it a bit easier for
100%.
the second time?
The first time I was upset, you know, I was angry. I didn't even finish that part. Yeah, the first time I was upset. I went to have lunch with Alvis Quanjidum, and he said, give it a day. Be upset for one full day, and then afterwards, find out what you gotta do. What do you need to work on? So I was upset. I cried. I'm like, I'm never gonna play basketball again, you know. And like, why did it happen to me? Like, you know, you go through your denials and things like that, and then after that, it's like, okay, what do you need to do? What's the next thing that needs to take place? So my mindset on the second time was like, hey, it's tore. What am I gonna do? Get some surgery. That's obviously. So, and then when you feel the pain, like this is different pain after recovery. It's like, what are you gonna do? All right, just keep moving.
So talking to Alvis Quanjidum, did that help you have a better perspective and a better way of being more flexible about the situation?
Absolutely, 100%.
And then did that flexibility, that mindset, because sometimes for me, personally, when something happens outside of USK, like in my personal life, and then it helps me kind of change a perspective on anything, I somewhat take that new perspective and I can kind of take it with me when I'm teaching or when I'm going on a new day at USK. So did that whole experience with your surgeries, did that help you become more flexible on the mat and teaching as well?
I think it made me more relatable, because up until that point, I'm pretty sure that everyone would have thought that I'm unbreakable.
Yeah, indestructible. Like it's Master Elie. Nothing's gonna happen to him.
You know, and I use that as a teachable moment, that even someone for me, you know, eat healthy, you know, at that point we even went vegan, you know, someone who takes their physical state and mental state very seriously, that you're always going to get a monkey wrench thrown into your life. So what do you do when your monkey wrench gets thrown into you? A monkey wrench gets thrown at you. And I think that I use that to just use that as making it as more relatable, versus trying to sit at the mountaintop and say, yeah, this is how you need to act and behave when everything's rainbows and butterfly. Okay, great. So now what do you do when the thing hits the fan? So that's what I did.
Sticking with the idea of having to be flexible around this, I'm kind of moving away from the fact that you had to overcome that.
Thank you.
It makes me think of like being flexible when teaching. Especially for me, I tend to get overwhelmed when when things aren't going the way I imagined them or like I wanted them to go, especially in classes.
Yeah.
And you were telling me to think slow and act fast, which I think is part of just being flexible and adapting to the situations that you have in class. Because every class is different. You're never gonna know if there's a student who's trying to run away while somebody else is doing something else. So do you have any like tips or ways that you adapted the think slow, act fast
like
mindset?
some teachings that you gained in martial arts that helped you become a better teacher, a better person overall, that could possibly help another person who may be having that same experience?
Yeah, it was the first time. So I got hired in 2008. I was a senior in high school, and I probably had like 5 months left in my senior year. And after that, when I first started going to college, I would work with Alvis Quanjidim, and he would refer to it as seeing the Matrix. Have you guys ever seen the Matrix movie?
Yes.
All of them, sir. Except for the most
fourth
recent
one?
one.
I've only watched the first one. I want to watch the rest.
Okay. The fourth one's not good. But
So
the
don't
one,
watch it.
no.
That's why I didn't watch it. I heard some stuff.
But what my takeaway from that is seeing the Matrix is that you can read the code. So like when Neo, no spoilers, but like when Neo finally embraces that he's the one, he's able to literally read like the digital code all around him, being able to see the Matrix. So Alvis Quanjidim was training me to be able to look for things like out of the ordinary. It started off with something as simple as like, you see that piece of trash on the floor in the school? Pick it up. And these are lessons that I think are universal, because my mom has been saying this for years. And it's like my mom would say that. It's like, okay, mom. But then all of a sudden, all of a sudden it's like, your teacher says that to you. It's like, yes, I should pick up that piece of trash on the ground. I don't know why I haven't seen it before. So things like that, and just really teaching people how to be aware of their surroundings, especially if walking into an environment, being able to read your body language, being able to read people's body language. And I think that's one of the biggest things that I still practice to this day, is just being able to try to be extremely aware of the surroundings. Especially, again, I got hired in 2008. In 2008, the iPhone pretty much came out, and there wasn't really social media like that. So a lot of times nowadays, children specifically, are glued to their tablets like this, and they're very much tunneled vision, and it's just being able to just be aware of what's happening in the world around you.
With you having so much experience in your martial arts journey and everything that you've been learning throughout the years, how, in your opinion, how do you think being a martial artist corresponds with owning a business or running a business?
How do I think that martial arts works in tandem with owning a business?
Yes.
I would say, okay. So by the time I got to mid-20s, I had the opportunity to work in a different martial arts school. And from what I've seen, it's not a lot of other businesses, they're either very good at running their business, and sometimes their core principles doesn't necessarily match up with the figureheads at the top. And what I've seen with Alvis Quanjidim is that, yes, we are all martial artists, but we're also business owners. And those two things can coexist. Whereas when I was younger, I didn't really see that in other industries and other businesses. So for me, it was very much be a phenomenal martial artist, a phenomenal teacher and leader with teams and staff and things like that. And then it was taking on a new adventure as to be a business owner. Back in the day, I would have never said I wanted to make this own a martial arts school. That was never my vision. I would say probably by the time I got to like 30s, I was like, all right, I want to be able to make sure that like I'm part of, I wanted to be a business owner as well and create more businesses like this one.
What do you think are some aspects or requirements that a person should have in order to own a business or be able to successfully run a business? Being fluid, being able to take criticism, being able to find people that are successful that you admire and follow their footsteps and listen very closely. You don't have to try to necessarily reinvent the wheel. You just have to look at what other successful people are doing and emulate that, and the success will come. And it won't come overnight. There's a lot of like instant gratifications. You have to be persistent. You have to keep working. And for us, at least in our culture, is that, and what I was taught is that, money's good, great, cool, but it's just a tool. And if you live by helping people first, then it will come. I never, even when before I became a part owner, I never asked for a raise. I always wanted to just go above and beyond. And some people, even my friends, were like, that's stupid. You shouldn't do that. Like, why are you going in extra? And that's a cool, that's a mentality that works for you. My focus was that I just love to give back. And by doing that, a lot of the success in my life came from just by putting in extra. You are what you attract. What you give is what you're going to be received.
Absolutely. Law of attraction.
Mm-hmm. With you mentioning that, like, you always tried to give 100% and, like, be the best, how does that correlate into, like, having bad days where maybe it just, you weren't feeling it or something, and, like, still being able to, like, tell yourself, okay, I still gotta give it 100%, and, like, with every single thing you do, even, like, the small things, which to some people may seem like, oh, why would you try so hard on that? But it's something small that, like, you still give 100% to.
I think it's culture. I think it's that you're a professional, and that, when I was trained into me was that when you step onto the mat, you are this way. This is the culture of the school. This is the culture of being a true professional. Then, that's one level of it, that it's not just on the mat. It's the interaction that you have with your peers, your employees, your boss. Then it's like, okay, well, then it's the minute you walk out of your car. It's the minute you walk into the building. It's the minute you walk out of your house. Because your emotions and your feelings, your bad day is valid. It's real. We all have bad days. But whatever you do in life, you have to be a professional. And it's how do you handle those things? So again, it's just look at the people you deem to be successful around you, whether it's the LeBron James or
Elon Musk,
the Steph Currys, they all got bad days, but you don't need to always wear it on your sleeve.
So are there any, like, specific things that you might do to, like, help you get into the right mindset before, like, stepping into the building, stepping onto the floor?
There's really specific things that I do. Either talking it over with my mentors, talking it over with my wife, or if it's like a really bad day, I have to step out the building and just take like a quick 5 minutes to reset, because ultimately what I'm doing is I'm resetting and saying it's not about me, and like my feelings are valid, but I have to remind myself that I'm a leader, and when you're in this leadership role, you're always being watched. What you think that somebody's not watching you, years later, like, remember that one time? No. It was like, I remember that one time. And it's like you just always got to remember that you're being watched, and if you're a leader, you have to set the tone, set the example. So different from what I told them earlier is that don't be a hypocrite. if you stand in front of the room and tell someone to do X, Y, and Z, you better be damn sure that you're doing it first.
Practice what you preach.
Yeah, and I think that even relates to what we talked about earlier in the meeting we had for title, where my bracelet, and I think you have the same bracelet, it's
be the change that you want to see in the world. It all starts with you.
Yeah, everything starts and ends with you. You have to put out what you're looking for.
Which is what philosophy in our martial arts?
Wait. To avoid,
What?
The conflict begins and ends with you.
That's not the philosophy.
It's a philosophy.
The philosophy is this. It's our mudo, right? So we have a symbol that refers to mu, martial way, discipline, path. But really what it refers to is that all conflict, without any exception, starts and stops with you as the individual. So I was actually talking to my sister about this the other day, is that, you have an issue with your neighbor, your friend, your spouse, your boss, your co-worker. It's not them. It's how you perceive it. It's how you respond to it. It's how you interact with it. So without fail, all conflict starts and stops within you.
I think you are a great person to learn from, especially with your, you're welcome, especially with your experiences. And so my last question before we have to say goodbye is, with whoever is watching who wants to become a business owner or wants to become an entrepreneur, what advice would you give them to kind of help, them go on the right path?
Find a mentor. I think that, a lot of people surround themselves with naysayers, surround themselves with people that they don't really aspire to be like. There's a saying that you are who your top 5 friends are. And if you want to be in any industry, in anything that you do in life, find a group of people that think and act the way that you want to act and behave like. There's even sayings like, be the dumbest person in the room. You don't ever want to be the smartest person in the room, because then you're not necessarily...
You're surrounding yourself with the...
idiots. Yeah. I'll say it. Yes, you're surrounding yourself with idiots, if it's offensive or not. But, you want to surround yourself with intelligent people. There's a reason why I married my wife. She's way smarter than me, and I know that. But, if you want to be successful in anything that you do, find people that are going to help you, or you could just learn from. And it's not going to be overnight. It's not this well-kept secret or anything like that. Read some books, go online, research, and just, try to do better. And little by little, it'll get you there.
I think that is a great idea, just a mentor, which I think not only relates to this podcast, but relates to the past podcasts we've had with Chef Dan, letting us know that he, shout out to Chef Dan, letting us know that he, had mentors that he looked up to, or even with Alvis Conch, with him having people to look up to. I think that's just a really consistent
universal
topic that can be applied to everything. It's
universal with Chef Dan. He's in culinary. He's a chef. He had mentors for him. And it's the information that gets passed down. And I think a lot of people get stuck in this rat race of where do I even begin? It's not as hard as you make it out to be. Just find someone, or read a book, or look around in your environment, or just go up and ask somebody. A lot of it is just I'm too afraid to ask, and self-doubt and these negative talks that put these limited beliefs on yourself. Just go over and say, hey, can I shadow you? Can I mentor you? Can I follow you? And a lot of times these guys will be like, yeah. And if they say no, okay, cool.
Move on to the next person.
Or can you give me one piece of advice that you've gained if in that industry? And that's it.
And I think a lot of people who are watching this podcast or hearing it could also learn a lot from your experiences as well. So that's why we really appreciate you coming on this podcast
Thank you
today.
so much.
My pleasure. Thank you. You guys were awesome.
I learned a lot, and I am very honored to have you here, sir.
Yes. Definitely lots of little nuggets of information that
and
I'll
wisdom.
take with me. Wisdom, yeah. If you're listening, I think you should maybe reflect on what we've heard today, because a lot of these are some really great concepts.
And also stay tuned for episode 4 coming up, so that, I don't know who it is yet, but you guys will find out next episode.
Whoever it is.
We'll all find out next episode.
Thank you so much for tuning in to the Confident Kids Communication Podcast. Again, I'm Sara Sofia de Castro.
I'm Rebecca Waters.
I'm Master Elie.
And we're signing off. Bye.
Peace.